Thank you, everyone. I know more people will be joining, but it's really great to be able to share this uh, passion of mine with all of you, and I hope to instill some of that in you. The fact that you're showing up for this shows there's already a lot of pent-up interest, and that's great. Um, this has to go out of the way. Let's see. Hmm. Now my Zoom is in the way of my presentation. That's okay. All right, put you over here. Okay. A couple of things. Please keep your mics muted. There'll be time for questions at the end. I'm trying to leave a lot of time because I know this will raise a lot of questions. Um, please keep the chat open. There are a couple of points during the chat where we'll be sharing links with you and asking asking questions, asking you to respond, and things like that. It will also, then some of those links are going to be, you're going to be doing stuff too during this presentation. Uh, yeah, I hope to end with 15 to 20 minutes for questions at the end. That's my goal. Okay. It's based on, I've been getting a lot of questions from other master naturalists about how to use iNaturalist, how to get started. Things that seem simple to me, like joining a project. We're not going to get into a lot of those things, but some of them are very basic. So I know that there's a baseline really early in the process, kind of beginner level knowledge. And so that's what this is targeted for. We won't have time to get into advanced topics, things that maybe folks who have more experience might be more interested in. But again, if there's time at the end, we can maybe dive into that. Also, iNaturalist is a lot to say, so I'll be saying iNat a lot. That's the same thing. Uh, this is going to start with just introducing you to iNaturalist. So a lot of people just know iNaturalist as an app that they installed on their phone, and it's so much more than that. And it's important that people understand that there is much more. You don't have to use it that way, but once you know that it's there, I think you're going to want to use it. Um, community science is really important, and that's really what iNaturalist was based on. It was built originally uh, out of uh, forget what the names are, California Academy of Sciences and another organization, which we'll mention later, as a community science experiment. It was actually built as a thesis project, and it's just expanded from there. Um, the one that we access, what I think of as iNaturalist, is iNaturalist.org. We'll be looking at that in a moment. But recognize that this is global uh, community. And so different countries may have their own instances. There are different laws in different countries. And so it makes sense that there are different instances, but they all communicate. And anything I upload to my iNaturalist will show up on the iNaturalist on the other side of the world. And that's really cool, and vice versa. Um, one of my colleagues here in New York has called it social media for naturalists. I go so far as to say it's social networking for naturalists because I have met so many people through iNaturalist, and some of them I now consider friends, in addition to colleagues. So we're going to start right away. Um, Christy, can you paste the link into the chat? If not, I'll
Which
try.
which link is that, Chris?
So on the speaker notes I sent you, so we're on the demo. Just to paste the link for iNaturalist. Anybody who has it, it's just the iNaturalist.org link, so that
Oh,
everybody who's watching, please open that link up in a browser. There you go. Thank you, Corey. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing, and you'll be able to follow along. We're not doing very much here right now. We're going to do more later. So first of all, I want to sign out because I want you to see what it starts out as. If you're just accessing this anonymously, or if you've never made an account, this is what you'll see. Okay. And you'll notice in the right-hand corner up here, you have the opportunity to log in or sign up. So if you don't have an account, you can sign up right here. If you do, you can log in and you'll get a different view. Okay. So let me show you. So if I log in, here we are. you'll see there's a very different view for people who have active accounts. We have no time to get into all what everything that's going on here. Just recognize that there's a lot of things going on and that there's a lot of functionality you can only access via a browser. We're going to stay on the app today, but understand there's some things that you'll need to use the browser for at some point, and maybe we'll cover that kind of stuff in a future session. Okay. The other thing to notice on that home page, you still have the screen up, is the learning resources. There's this menu bar is really important. So when you're trying to get along, you're trying to figure something out, or maybe you're struggling a little bit, check these out. There's some really good information here. Um, and the more is really the static pages, the basic kind of help pages and things you might get. They've got some video tutorials. We're going to be looking at one of those in a moment. Help pages. They've revamped their whole help system recently, and it's quite extensive. The other thing is the community. There is a forum. It's a little different than iNaturalist. You do have to register your account there. You can just register your iNaturalist account, but that gives you the ability to submit questions, tell people what problems they're having. You can search the just thousands and thousands and thousands and multiple years of problems that other people have encountered and how they solve them. So it's a very rich resource for figuring things out. And I often consult it. Like, I encounter things that I think are really weird. I go there, see if anybody else found something weird, and then we figure it out. Okay. Also, in addition to these, you can tag people. So you can send me a message on iNaturalist from your account. You also can email me. I'll put my email in there, but you can also tag me in a comment if you've got an observation and it's just sitting there and you don't see any action. You could tag me and say, "Hey, Chris, could you take a look at this?" And I might not know what it is. I might know what it is or see something that about the observation that's making it hard for people to find it or recognize it. And I can give you some tips that way. This is stuff I do all the time. So I'm going to tell you a story. And this story I like because it just exposes all these different aspects of iNaturalist and why it's so important for naturalists, for natural history, for documenting biodiversity, and for building community. So again, get the chat ready. I'm going to ask you two questions. I'm going to ask you to type your answers or responses into the chat. So what do you see? It could be colors, shapes, whatever. And obviously it's a photo of something that I intended. What do you think it is? So any of those things are fine. What you see in the photo, or if you want to hazard a guess, what you think this is. Please don't be shy. Okay. There we go. Great, 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 great. Yes, it is two insects mating. Anyone hazard a guess on what kind of insect? I see dragonflies and wasps. Good. True love baby, absolutely. Okay. Believe it or not, these are two flies. These are not wasps. They are flies. And what it is, it's a type of bee fly, which I would never have figured this out. Like I can see it's a fly. I would know it's a fly, but I would never have figured out this was a bee fly. Most bee flies don't look anything like this. This is an actual mimic of a genus of wasps, the Ammophila, Ammophila. They're sand wasps, and these mimic them like really, really well. If you go look up Ammophila, you'll see how good a mimic these are. And these are parasitoids of what are called slug caterpillars. The family, I forget the family right now, and that's okay. But the story behind this is even more interesting, I think. So when I'm going to a new place, I try to look and see what the iNaturalist observations are in that area, and I try to see who are the top observers in that area, and I send them messages on iNaturalist, say, "Hey, I'm going to be up there, this week or whatever. Check out my observations. If you'd like to meet up, let me know. I'm going to be looking at stuff all over the place anyway, and be nice to meet some people." So I've met some great people that way. And two people I've met from the capital area in Saratoga County are Susan Pierce and Jacqueline Donnelly. And those of you who are active in like New York statewide kind of natural history stuff may recognize one or both of those names. They've done a lot. So they've shared many special places with me. This is one of those special places that Sue shared with me. This is from Big Bend Preserve, which is part of Moreau State Park. It's been owned by the state for a few years, but it only just opened to the public in July of this year. And like in the first week, Sue was there. Sue is making her observations, and she came across this weird thing. Uh, and she put it in iNaturalist. iNaturalist thought it was this species of fly, Cystropus macer. Uh, but there were no previous observations of this species of fly in New York State on iNaturalist. That's kind of surprising, but that happens now and then. So then she started looking at the other scientific databases, those that actually make museum collections public. So had this ever been collected in the New York State? No, it has not. So this is possibly a state record. She's still trying to confirm with the Natural Heritage Program, and this was done through iNaturalist. So I was up there in August. She was very excited to uh, take me and another friend there. We looked for it. We looked for it. She showed us exactly where she had seen it. We couldn't find it. We went wandering around for another 3 hours. We're walking back to the parking lot, and boom, there it was in the same spot where she had seen it before. And it was a mating pair on top of everything else. So there's some links that can go into the chat where you can read all about these. Um, are you able to do that, Christy? If not, I could try to grab it.
Chris, I'll go
Okay.
back and try to snag that.
Okay, let me see what I can get here. Here we go. I'm able to get it because I have the document open in another window. One of the run-throughs I did on Friday, I learned that, oh, even though I can see the speaker notes in uh, when I'm in the presenter view, like you're seeing the slide view, I'm seeing the presenter view, I can't copy and paste. It's not selectable. It's just display only to me too. And that was kind of surprising and frustrating. So you can read more about all of that. You can see all the observations of the species in New York State. And it's just a great story to illustrate just how powerful iNaturalist can be. There are discoveries being made all around the world. New species are being discovered, species that we thought were extinct are being rediscovered. So there's a lot going on with iNaturalist around the world. It's very cool. Um, Observations are kind of the heart, the core of iNaturalist. So we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about them, and we're actually going to get to make our own observation. So this is a graphic from them from one of their help pages. Um, these are kind of the 5 questions that an observation should be able to answer. Who, what, when, where, and how. Like, how do you know? What is the evidence that you saw? Now, we're going to be using photos throughout this presentation, but you can also use sound recordings. Um, the photos you take don't have to be of the organisms. They could be tracks or nests or anything that is evidence of an organism that it had recently been in that area. That's what an observation is. So that gives you a lot of flexibility. Um, an observation in iNaturalist, you can only record the presence of something like this was there. There's no way to say I looked for this thing for hours and it wasn't there. That's not what iNaturalist can do. There are other platforms, like if some of you are familiar with IMAP invasives. IMAP invasives is very important when you're doing invasive species surveys that you can say, I looked high and low for this and I did not find it. That's very important. But iNaturalist is not focused on that. Okay. And I'll copy this. The source of that diagram is also good because there's a lot of other information on that particular page about uh, what is an observation. So that's something you can look at, hopefully not while I'm talking. But that's where it came from. It came from them. Okay. So As a speaker, I should not be saying this, but please take out your phones. We are going to make an observation. Okay. I'm going to walk you through it. I may show you what to do first, or you can follow along. Okay. The prerequisites for you to actively participate in this are you have to have the app installed on your phone, iPhone or Android, and you have to have an account, okay, already that you've registered with iNaturalist. You don't have to have any observations. If you are missing either one of those things, that's fine. You can just watch. You'll still get a lot out of it, and we'll be doing this together. Okay, so I'm going to put something up on the screen, a photo of an organism, okay? And you're going to open up the app, tell iNaturalist to take a photo of the thing, and you're going to start to make an observation. Now, I'm going to do it myself because I can show you some additional things as we go. So, first of all, here's your sample organism to use, okay? So now I'm going to go uh, and I'm going to go to iNaturalist on my phone. Hopefully you can see this over here. And this is Android. It looks very different on the iPhone. They're working to make these look closer, but it's going to take a while. So on the Android, the add an observation is down here as a plus sign. On the iPhone, it might be a camera, take a picture, whatever. But whatever the option has, you have, notice you could either take a photo or you could choose an image. Like you could already have a photo of something you took on your phone days ago, right? And you could upload it to iNaturalist by selecting this other option. We're not going to be showing that today, but that's a very important way of making observations. We'll talk a little bit more about, the trade-offs between those two choices in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to take a picture. This is going to look really weird from your perspective, okay, but bear with me. This is Mr. Squishy, okay? I have Mr. Squishy here, so I'm going to try to take a picture of Mr. Squishy, okay, and see what iNaturalist makes of this. Okay, so now we should be able to see that's the photo I took. Notice it's off-centered and everything. That's fine. We'll figure it out. And I can say, yeah, I want this. I can try it again, or take, yeah, I'm going to use this photo. I'm going to use this photo. Okay. You can raise your hand or type in the chat if you've gotten this far. I just want to know that somebody has gotten this far. Somebody besides me. If not, I'll wait. Okay, good, good, good. All right. We've got a couple of people who have gotten this far. That's great. Excellent, excellent. Okay. This is the fun part. Up here says, what did you see? View suggestions. Now, I don't know what the heck this thing is. I mean, I do, but let's say I really have never seen anything like this. What could it be? iNaturalist, give me some ideas. Um, is it evidence of a human? Well, yes, it's a toy, so it's evidence that a human has been here. But look at the other options here. Is it a cat? Is it a mouse? Is it a beetle? Is it the coronavirus? Right? I just was really just baffled. Like, I guess it's round. I don't know. So what I'm pointing out here is take what iNaturalist says with a grain of salt. If you know what it is, type it in. Right? I chose a not real thing on purpose so that if we actually uploaded these as observations, it would be really clear this was not a real observation. Okay. Um, and that's Mr. Squishy. Okay. Believe it or not, this is everything we just did. We just went through all these steps. It seemed pretty straightforward, but we opened the app, we tapped the observe or the button, we took a photo, we chose an identification. If I go back to show you, I didn't actually select anything. So let me go ahead and select. I'm going to select the coronavirus because I just think that's hysterical. Okay. All right. But in the notes, I'm going to say test, please ignore. And I'm even going to say, I'm going to click this little box because this says it's not real, right? It's not a real thing. Don't worry about it. Okay. Notice there's the date and time that I took the photo. If you're uploading a photo, instead of taking it live, it should have the date and time of the photo. You want to watch the location, make sure that that's present and correct. Sometimes, if the photo itself does not have a location on it, like your GPS, then it's going to have the location where you were when you uploaded it, which could be wildly different. Okay. This is where I am in my house, more or less. Okay. But that also happens to be where I took the picture. Okay. Now I can check this and say, yeah, go ahead and submit it as an observation. It shows up in my observations, and I could wait and see if somebody comes back and says anything about this. Okay. So that was a lot, but you get the idea that even though if you lay it out step by step, it's kind of complicated, it's really pretty simple. So here we use the uh, phone to take the app. We use the app to take the photo. Sorry. It's simple. You only have to deal with one app. These are advantages. Potential disadvantages. You have to have an internet connection when you're using the app. And when we're in the field, that might not be true, right? When we were up in Arnott, we barely got cell service, let alone any internet. So you might need to take photos in the field, and then when you have a stable, reliable connection, then you can start uploading the photos. So think about that trade-off. Also, if you're doing it this way, if your photo doesn't have a location on it, then the location only exists on the observation. As I mentioned, that could be wrong, but also if that photo, if you use it in anything else, the location doesn't travel with the photo. It's only part of the observation. So those are just trade-offs to think about. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example observation where we can see all of these things, who, what, when, where, and how in effect. Okay. So I'm going to give you, if I can figure out which window to switch to. Uh, yeah. Yeah, here we go. Okay. I'm going to give you a link in the chat, which corresponds to what we're seeing. And if you want, you can follow along there. Okay. So this is a coot. A lot of you will recognize it. It's quite distinctive. And uh, this is from Prospect Park. This was just a few weeks ago. It's one of my favorite places to go. And in the winter, there aren't so many bugs, so I'm getting a lot of birds. And this is not the whole thing you see on the screen. It's just I'm taking piece by piece. So what information do we have here? We have what? Obviously, it's a coot, right? And there are even some other photos here, but that's how do you know? How do I know as I provided photographic evidence that yes, there was a coot there and this is what it looked like. And there's another one here, and then here's a picture of the two of them together. You can have multiple photos on an observation. Now, the other half of, oh, that actually took me to the link. That's not what I meant to do. I forgot I had done that. Okay. The other thing is, what are the other pieces? Who, what, and when, right? So we've got who, when, and where, right? And we have when. So this is when it was observed, not when it was submitted. Notice the difference in times. And that's because the date and time are stamped on the photo itself. It's part of the metadata, the back end information that you don't see on there. And then finally we have where. That's where I saw it. Okay. And every observation will have those four pieces. Okay. So when you're doing an observation, what should you be making observations of and what not? So we're going to have observations of wild organisms, things we found in the wild. We don't want pets, potted plants, or people. The three Ps. This, Mr. Squishy obviously is invalid for an observation. You want one organism or species per observation. So the one we just looked at, there were two coots, but it was one species. And so I included both of them in the observation. And I just made a note, oh, there are two coots in this observation. If you have more than one species, like you're photographing a bunch of birds on the lake, then you want to have an observation for each species that you observed. Okay, iNaturalist has something called duplicate the observation, but you could also upload a photo multiple times. That's fine too. You can have, like we saw, more than one individual of the same species in an observation. That's fine. Okay. You can have up to 20 images. I may have one or two where I hit that limit, but it's typically never necessary to go that far to get something. Okay. One more thing, if there's an interaction between the two, like it's not just two different duck species on a lake, but it's like this is a bee visiting a flower, try to document both. You're both valuable, even if it's a garden plant, as long as you mark it as captive cultivated, it's a valuable observation because we can clearly see the plant that the bee was visiting. Okay. More about observations. Let's dive into this. So this is a little video that comes from iNaturalist. So there is sound, but it's jingly little music. So I'm just going to talk over it. You won't hear it. Did that work? No. Oh, I have to click it over here. Okay, thank you. Okay, so there are three things that they make a point of here. Okay, three tips. Get closer. We don't want a picture just of a tree across the field. We want to get some details of the leaves, the fruits, and stuff like that, right? Same with bugs and birds, okay? You want to get details. This is an unreasonable photo that I just want to, it's just nobody should be expected to get a photo that good early on. This is like specialized equipment to get this photo. So do not hold yourself up to this standard of getting closer, okay? Always your safety always comes first. Don't die to get the shot. Okay. Um, Many organisms need different features to be highlighted. With plants, there's a whole bunch of things. Get the back of the flower. Um, Different parts of the animal. With bugs, it's important to get the face, the side, the wings. Here's a spider. You got the top and the face. All these things are important. Okay. Take photos that are sharp and in focus. These are really hard. These can be really hard depending on what you're working with. We'll look at some examples in a moment. Okay, so that was fun. Let's go on. Come on. Okay, so talking about getting closer. How you do that, uh, how you do that really depends a lot on what you're looking at. How big is it? How small is it? How is it behaving? Is it sitting still like a tree? Is it moving all over the place like a bug? Right? These are all different things you need to be mindful of. Okay. They all have their own challenges. Um, Insects are just the worst. They're just everything is moving. The insect is moving, the flower is moving in the wind. I'm shaking, trying to hold myself steady. It's just terrible. Um, One trick or tip is you can crop a photo to get closer, like you have a big wide shot, but you crop it down and suddenly you have a big close-up photo of that organism. That's what that coot photo is, right? So a couple examples from my observations. We're going to just look at each one of these, okay? And again, you could type things into the chat. Uh, what is it? What are some things that would make it hard to get a photo of? And what are some things you might do to try to get a good photo to get closer? Okay. So here's the first thing. So thoughts about what this might be. Yes, eggs. Eggs of what do you think? Are they chicken eggs? Snake eggs? Dinosaur eggs? They're very small, right? There's a $0.25. These are very small eggs. Slugger salamander, good. Insect. Yes, an insect. In fact, these are the egg cases. They've already left the egg shells. The egg cases of a pipevine swallowtail that was left on a leaf. So they already left and they went on and did their munchy stuff, but the egg cases remain. So I felt okay to take the leaf off of the vine and set it up to take a photo. This was done with a macro. You can see it's half the thickness of a quarter. It's very small. So I needed a specialized lens to get close to this one. All right, let's look at another one. Um, Sometimes getting closer is hard when things are far away. Anybody know what this is? This one's easier. Yes, it's a whale. Uh, Anybody hazard the type of whale? Okay, it's not a right whale, but it's possible in this area. It is a whale. Yes, it's a humpback whale. This is off the coast of New York City. This is in sight of Queens in New York City. You can go whale watching in New York City. And if you ever come to New York City and want to go whale watching, let me know because I want to go back. So what are some of the challenges here, right? It's an animal, so it's unpredictable, right? It has behavior, but it has many different kinds of behavior. It has tail slapping, it has breaching, it has coming up to breathe, just all kinds of different kinds of behavior. And most of it is underwater. So you don't see it. You don't know where it's going to come up. So you have to, it's very unpredictable. So there are challenges there. Also, you're not allowed to approach marine mammals. You shouldn't do it in the first place, and it's illegal, right? But you can sit in a boat quietly in one spot, and often they will come up to you because they're curious and you're not threatening them in any way. They kind of get to know you after a while with the boat. So you hope it comes up close, but maybe not. So you might need a telephoto, but also it might come up right next to the boat, and then your telephoto is not going to help you. So maybe a zoom lens is the right tool in this circumstance. Okay. Last one. What is it? I'm sure you can get the general bee. Yes, it's a bee. I'm not going to expect anybody to know what kind of bee. It is a cellophane bee. Cellophane is one of our many ground nesting bees. Most of our bees nest in the ground, about 80% of the species. And this is, or I'm sorry, not 80%. It's 80% are solitary and like over 50% are ground nesters. This is a cellophane bee. This is the rufous-chested cellophane bee, uh, Coletes thoracicus. And this is from my garden. This is a bee that nests in my garden. I was talking at the beginning with the my background here. That's my front yard. That's part of my whole garden, the back and the front. And I've documented 65 species of bees alone in my garden. This is one of them. This is one of the earliest ones that I got identified. Okay. So here they're busy, they're active. In this case, one of the techniques I used was I captured it with a net and I chilled it. So I am keeping an eye on the clock. I chilled it, and so it would be still. I put it on a card. I had my macro already set up, and so I was able to turn the card around to get the different angles. And this is just a very photogenic bee. I just really like it. Okay. Um, Multiple angles. It's really important to look at field guides and learn about the things you're seeing. I've learned so much from other people, but also from checking the guides, like what are the angles I need or which photos. If I take like 20 photos, I may never see this thing again, but if I get three good ones, that's great. And I can use a field guide to tell me which ones are the right ones. Okay, so take lots of photos. Your field time is very limited. You may never see that thing again. You can take your time processing the photos. Okay, so here I'm intending to show you mhm, something, but since we're running low on time, I'm just going to paste the link in the chat, and I'm not going to go through the whole example, but I'll point out a couple of things really quickly. Okay, where are we going? Where's the guy? Where's the little guy? Here we are. Okay, and into the chat. Okay, so we're going to look at this observation right here. All right, that should open up. Come on, there we go. All right, so different observation. And since we're talking about multiple angles, the key thing I want you to notice, um, how many photos are there on this one observation, right? There's 10 photos, and each of them, for the most part, is showing a different aspect of the bee. And faces are very important with insects. And from this, the world bee expert, John Asher, I mean, seriously, he's made like 1.2 million identifications on iNaturalist. He was able to get down to a subspecies. I have no idea how he knows that, but I trust that he does. I knew it was a bee. I didn't recognize it was a cellophane bee, and that was fun to see because I had only seen this once before. Okay, so multiple angles. Okay. lots of photos, sharp and focused. All kinds of things get in the way, things move, stick happens. That's something that birders know. Um, Learn your equipment, figure out what the limits and advantages are of your equipment, right? So sometimes you can take surprisingly good photos, especially with more recent uh, cameras on phones. They're pretty amazing, a lot of them. Okay. But also the behavior, right? If it's visiting a flower and it flies off, maybe it's going to circle back. Maybe I should just stay watching that area and I'll catch it on an adjacent flower, right? So there's things that you can learn to see what's going to happen. And it doesn't have to be like that mega macro photo we saw of that dragonfly. That was amazing. Um, Many things can be identified from blurry photos, especially, very common recognizable organisms. So sometimes even your blurry photos are going to be good enough to get to species, and that's great. Location is important. Right here, we're getting into the where. And do enable GPS on your phone, your camera, and also if you're going to use iNet to take photos and uploads, then let iNaturalist have access to your GPS too. So depending on what phone you have, there'll be different ways of doing this, but check your settings. There are also apps that can track your path, and you can refer to that to see where you were when you're doing it. Um, some locations are private. You can do something in iNaturalist called obscure, and it's something you can do on the observation to obscure it. So it just is like just almost a random area, but you've got like, the quadrant on the face of the Earth that it's in. Some sensitive species will be automatically obscured for you, and you can elect to let certain people have access to it, like researchers that you want to provide scientific data to. The identification. We saw an example of identification. We don't have to know what something is. You can look at the iNaturalist suggestion. Do look at it though. Don't just automatically select it. And the same thing goes, for experts. Don't rubber stamp somebody else's idea. If you don't know yourself what something is, don't just agree with somebody just because you feel like if you don't agree, you leave them hanging. They're used to it. Okay. And it can take a long time. Okay. Some things cannot be ID'd just from photographs. For example, many bees, to get them to species, you have to examine the genitalia under a microscope. I'm not going to do that. So I have to be satisfied with subgenus and other kinds of things. But over time, you'll learn what things are. So just to summarize everything we just went through, these are all the things to be aware of and be patient. Be gentle with yourself. You will get better and better at this as you go. Okay. Now, Master Naturalist, I'm speaking to you now. A lot of questions I've gotten about what can be reported. Okay. Basically everything. All the time you're spending to get that iNaturalist observation in to iNaturalist counts. The time you spend in the field, the time you spend processing the photos, if you spend a lot of time doing that like I do, the time you spend trying to identify the things you have. You've got the observation, but now we're trying to figure out what it is. Uploading observations. And for us advanced users like Corey and me, and maybe some others on the call, we can help each other. We can help other users. And if we're helping you to, make better use of iNaturalist and be better citizen scientists, that's a good thing. And Christy, you can correct me if I'm wrong in any of that, please. Okay. There are lots of ways that you can use iNaturalist. I'm sure you can think of some if there's anything that's not here, or if you've used iNaturalist and want to share what that is, please paste that into the chat. Okay. There's an upcoming opportunity. Actually, this is an annual opportunity, but we're at the right time of the year to take advantage of it. City Nature Challenge. This is an annual global BioBlitz. It is the largest BioBlitz in the world until somebody gives me evidence that there's one even bigger. iNaturalist is any living thing anywhere in the world, and that's what City Nature Challenge is. It could be underwater, it could be on top of a mountain, it could be flying, it could be in a chrysalis, whatever. Okay, it's the last weekend in April. This is the time of year when people are organizing their projects for next year. So you can get in on the ground floor of this. These are the two organizations I tried to mention earlier. Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County is the one I couldn't think of, and the California Academy of Sciences is the other. To show you what some of the opportunities might be, all these red specks are places where people have made observations in New York State during City Nature Challenge, going back to 2017, 2018, going back quite a while. Look at these big empty areas. There is a lot of possibility to get something going there. And it doesn't have to be a city, it can be a county. There are some places that are counties. So I'm going to copy some stuff in there. If you want, just do check out the website that I'm going to paste in now. Um, and again, if you have questions, please come to me. There's nothing for City Nature Challenge in Saratoga. There are many, many observations all over New York State, right? This is not all the iNaturalist observations in New York State, just the ones during City Nature Challenge. So it's a way to get your local community interested in getting out and looking at nature, engaging politicians and other kinds of stakeholders that might not be thinking about this, but this could get them excited about it. So there are 70 counties in New York State that have never had a City Nature Challenge observation. So there's big opportunities here. The field is open for you. Okay. Last thing here. Please, 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 please join the New York Master Naturalist project that I created for us. Okay. Let's see if I have the URL correct here. Yes. All right. I just pasted that in. You can go to that in the browser, whether you have iNaturalist installed, whether you have an account or not. It's public. You can take a look at that. And it's kind of fun to see what we're doing. Somebody joined today, maybe during this very session. There were 37 before we started. There were 36 yesterday. I'm tracking and keeping track. We are so close to passing 6,000 species. It's so exciting. Okay. So this is a way. Oh, look at that. Squishy showed up. Um, yeah, this is the way that we can sort of see what each of us is doing and kind of cross communicate and collaborate on things and help each other out. Okay. So that is almost everything. I've just got two more slides that are just really informational. Um, okay, you can join this project by up here. If you're not logged in or you don't have an account, you'll see members. Um, if you have an account, you'll see, and you're not a member, you'll see it says join here. Okay, click the join button. That's all you have to do, and then scroll down and say yes, I agree. Okay, all right. I could not be doing any of this work without so many people throughout my entire life. I tried to think of a lot of people. I also didn't have time to add all the colleagues that helped me out on Friday in giving this a run through and giving me really constructive criticism and feedback and some ideas about other things that we could do. I hope it has worked for you. I hope you've gotten a lot out of it. And I'll just leave it here on my contact information. Um, the things I will copy into the chat are just where I am on iNaturalist and my email. Okay. The other stuff you can find. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris.
Time for questions.
Yeah, I have one.
Yes.
So you said, so I have some observations that nobody's ever confirmed. And some of them,
Okay.
maybe the pictures aren't good enough, but some of them
Okay.
I think are pretty obvious. Um, and you also said that like I could reach out to you and ask
Yeah.
you to help me. How do you
What
do that?
in a comment on your observation, just say at XRAS. That's my handle, and that will tag me, and I'll get a notification.
Okay. But what if there's somebody like you just do that? How do we find people's handle or how do we know? I mean, there's somebody else who say confirmed a snake that I submitted. And so maybe
Okay.
I'll ask him again. We
Yeah,
want to
you
put his
could
handle.
so let's take a look. Let's take a look at an observation, right? And we can see where that information lives. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'll just even look at well, let's do this. Let's look at everything. Look at all the observations, and we'll look at things that are first we'll look at things that are research grade, which means they've been verified by two or more people. Okay.
Mhm.
So uh, here's Corey with a mute swan, probably in Prospect Park. Am I right?
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah, okay, close enough. Ah, okay, okay. Um, so I'm sure Corey knows what this is just by looking at it. And but he took the iNaturalist suggestion. That's fine. Okay, this little symbol means that it was iNaturalist, the what they call the computer vision, that provided this ID. And then two other people agreed with it. Okay. This is a clickable handle. This is a person. So you could go back and say, oh, um, what does this person do? Right? What are they good at? They do a lot of identifications. What are their favorite taxa? Maybe these are the things I could reach out to them for to identify. Or I could look at things they've identified. They also make a lot of observations. So this is a very active user, and they might be something who would be willing to be approached. You can also read and see if they're like, absolutely do not tag me in comments, I'll never see it, or whatever their preference is. I'm pretty flexible. You could also send somebody a direct message up here. Okay, I'm not going to do it, but I'll just show you what it looks like. You can put a subject body. You can put all kinds of stuff in here. Okay, and they'll eventually they'll see that message. I have notifications turned on, so as soon as somebody emails me something or tags me, I will get a notification about it. Does that help? Does that answer your question, Christy?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else, please?
This is Cheryl. Chris, I have a question. Do do people like go through and look for certain because that John Asher that you mentioned,
Yes.
I'd never heard of it before, but I had a picture of a bee
Yeah.
and he had identified that. So if that's his, type of thing that he likes to ID, can he go through and search for different pictures?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, let's do that. Let's show you a little bit more of the power of iNaturalist here. So let's say I can look at the taxonomy of the swan. Okay. Maybe I want to look at all the water birds. Okay. Maybe I'm interested in water birds. And I could look at maybe I only want them in New York State. Okay. Maybe I'm looking for things to identify, so I can click needs ID. So I can look at all the observations of any water bird in New York State, and I can start going through and identify things. Now, there is a separate special interface called Identify that some identifiers will use. I cannot make heads or tails of it. I'm not the one to ask how to use this thing. It's really confusing to me because I'm so used to the observation view, and I'm happy going through observations and looking at things, right? So any one of these things might be the person is an expert birder and they know what it is, but nobody else is really sure based on the photo. Like this was obviously taken from a distance and cropped the best they could. It was a faraway bird, right? Um, and that's what they said. See, and somebody came along and said, yeah, maybe, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain enough to identify and agree with your identification. That's perfectly fine. That's information, right? Um, you can do that kind of thing. You can even look at, well, what are the species that need identification? Maybe I'm an expert in one of these species. I can say, okay, you know what? I can recognize a mute swan from a mile away. There's nothing else like this in our area. I could look at all the observations of this and start going through them and seeing, is it a mute swan? Is it a mute swan? Maybe it's not. Maybe somebody thought it was a mute swan, or maybe the computer vision of iNaturalist said it was a mute swan and they just accepted that. So it's like, what the heck is this? It's a picture of a fence. Where's the swan? Where's the swan? Okay. Okay. This is an example of a bad iNaturalist photo. I'm sorry, to whoever this is, but uh, this could be a domestic duck. I really can't tell what this is from this photo. This is what's in focus is the fence, not the bird. It, this is not a good photo. A good photo, you can imagine what it is. It's something that leads to identification, right? This, yeah, I don't think this is ever going to go further than this. Okay. So does that
Yeah.
help? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Alan, you've had a question for a while.
Yeah, a question that when you enter an observation, how do you make sure it gets over to the New York Naturalist group?
Nothing. You don't have to do anything. It'll show up automatically.
Oh,
All you
okay.
have to do is join the project.
Okay. All right.
Join the
So
project. I think you're already a member.
yes, I am. Yes, I am. So
So
if I make an observation, it will automatically go into the that base. Yeah, I'm definitely
it'll show up in the group. In fact,
okay. Okay.
let me show you this. We can see who are the observers. So notice there's 41 now. Thank you for joining during this session. 41 members now, but only 37 observers. That means there's 4 people who are members of the project who haven't observed anything, and that's great. As you observe things, they'll start showing up here. You don't have to do anything else. So this is a members only project. Only members of the project, their observations will show up. Okay? But you have to join for that to happen.
Yep.
So we could go down and you shout when you see your name there, Alan.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Keep calm. Probably one of the guys that I probably made my observation there. Yeah, I'm AF Wood. Yeah. Okay, so it is there. The 2 things I did make.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. All
These
right.
aren't clickable, unfortunately, but I could click your profile.
Yeah,
Okay.
I probably don't have much on there, but
And I could look, and you've got your 2 observations. Look at that.
yeah,
I can
well,
see what
okay.
observations you've made. There you
Yeah,
go.
there
Oh, I
is.
know this one. I know this one. I can agree with your identification.
Yeah, an oil beetle and a millipede. That was it. You got it.
There's nothing else like this.
Observations.
But here's a problem. You're missing the location, or the location is private. It's submitted and the location is private. So you chose to have it hidden rather than
Okay.
obscured. Okay.
Okay.
If you obscure the location rather than making it private, then it's available for others to
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't want
confirm.
that.
Like,
People know where I live. That's all.
yeah, and that's absolutely right. So you could set up, say, I want all my locations to be obscured.
Okay.
Unless you specifically allow it, and that way you maintain your privacy wherever you are.
Gotcha. So obscure.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Thank
Okay.
you.
We could even say there's an organism. It appears to be alive, but I can't really be sure.
Yep.
It looks like it's crawling. Okay.
Yep. I was
All
right
right.
on the street. Yep. Thank
Great.
you.
Oh, and I saw the blister beetle. I know that's a blister beetle too.
Yes.
So
Yep.
great.
Great.
And more questions. The rewilding. That's a really good question. I'll have to say it depends, right? So is it reproducing on its own, or is this a plant that was planted there as part of a restoration project, right? Or if something was released from captivity, like, I released rabbits, right? Eastern cottontails, right? Endangered species. I released them into an area. Well, maybe that year I can't count them as truly wild because they were released from a captive population. But when I see bunnies next year, those are now reproducing in the wild. There's a lot of debate about this in the iNaturalist communities, but they've now added a new field that you can check. Let's see if it's on. Let me see if it's on this one. For these kinds of animals, there's another, what they call an annotation. We're down to the last few minutes. So these annotations, sometimes there'll be a line here that says introduction, or a method, something about method of introduction or something like that. I think it's only available for mammals and maybe amphibians now, like frogs or something. To indicate that, yes, it is wild in this area, but it's there because humans introduced it to this area, to be able to make that distinction. Now, it's not yet available on all the species where you'd want to see it, right? So I would say if it's clear evidence that it's reproducing on its own, like, you go from year to year and it's showing up and it has an annual life cycle, it's wild. If it was released last year and you're seeing young this year, those younglings are wild. Okay, that's how I would do it. Other iNaturalists would disagree, but that's a good guideline to start with. Okay, you can put lots of details in the notes. You can put everything in the notes, but there are other things that you can just click and check here. Okay, it's really helpful for these things. It's really helpful to check this if it's anything other than the organism. Okay, Did I find a nest, an egg, a bone? Okay, that's really helpful. And if it's anything other than an adult, because photos of juveniles are really hard to come by for a lot of species, and being able to find them is really important. Okay. Uh, any last what do we have, Christy? 4 minutes? 3 minutes?
Yeah.
I can stay late. I don't want to keep anybody, past time, but I can stay later.
Did you see Steve Jacoby's message about taking 17 photos with his phone that identified one to name and another as a plant?
Okay. Do you have those as observations, Stephen? Are
Uh,
they in I are
I
they in
just, I
iNet?
just, I just uploaded the photos.
Okay.
That's
And
it.
did you join the project?
No, I downloaded the app from
Okay.
the App Store. That's it.
Okay. So you just have the photos locally, you haven't uploaded them yet.
Um, well, I don't know.
Okay. What's when did you join the project? Recently or a while ago?
When you say join the project, I
Okay.
downloaded the app and I have
Okay.
iNaturalist on my phone.
Okay. Do you know what your username is? It'll be on the app, like on the top of the app.
Yes.
Can you tell me what it is?
Uh,
Or type it in. Or
I'm,
type it
I'm
in.
not good. I'm not very good at this stuff.
That's okay. That's okay. We
Um,
all get better at it. I'm always learning. I've learned so much just in the past 3 years.
I
Okay. You
it's
know
it's
what?
Steven 279.
Great. So we look for Stephen. You're not on this page, so maybe you're on the next page, or maybe you didn't join the project yet. Okay.
No, I just have it on my phone. I didn't.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So when you're back at your desk or you have availability of a browser, open iNaturalist in the browser. You'll see that you can log in. If you already have it connected on the app, then you should be able to log in on the browser with the same ID. It should automatically sync up. And if not, you can create a new account and link that to your iNaturalist. Once you do that, tag me. Put at XRAS in a comment on one of your observations, and I'll take a look. Okay? And do join the project.
I have no idea how to do
I can walk you through it. I can walk you through it.
it. No,
Okay, once you
that's
open a
it.
browser, and get into iNaturalist, a lot of things become available to you. And that's why, it's really important to become comfortable with that. The apps are optimized for one thing only, and that is making identifications in the field or taking photographs in the field and getting them into iNaturalist. It is not good at anything else. And as you can see, there's so much more to iNaturalist than the app. Right? There's a lot of capabilities here. So the app you will outgrow the app after a bit. Okay, that's a problem. I'm sharing my phone screen and an alarm just went off. Oh, there we go. Okay, I can turn it off. There we go. I thought I'd have to click it on the screen, the screen share. Okay. I hope that's helpful, but do tag me.